So welcome to Feature Fridays. My name is Guy Bartram. I'm the Director of Product Marketing in VMware for our cloud providers. And today I'm joined by Gerrit and Satya. So Gerrit, let's start with you. You've been on Feature Fridays a few times. Can you just reintroduce yourself for those who haven't seen you before?
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Guy. Gerrit Lehr, Cloud Solution Strategist in the worldwide multi-cloud strategy and architecture team. So working with partners and customers on their multi-cloud strategy.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gerrit. And Satya, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Guy. I'm a big fan of both of you. I've seen quite a few of your videos and glad to be here. So my name is Satya. I'm a multi-cloud solutions architect in multi-cloud team here in VMware, and happy to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Satya, and thank you very much for your time today and coming all the way from Australia. It's great to have you on. So we're here today to talk about the Multi-Cloud Assessment Manager, which is a tool we brought out it's probably about 6 months ago, Gerrit, something like that. It's an assessment tool online which can be used with partners or with partners to customers. So it's quite a flexible tool. Gerrit, do you want to just explain the background around this? Why did you start developing this application?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Guy. So the VMware multi-cloud and app modernization maturity model, as we call it, or short MCAM, basically comes from our experience with working directly in customer accounts or working together with our partners in customer accounts, and the realization that a lot of times we would come into a strategic engagement and actually start doing some groundwork with those customers, right? So understanding where they stand holistically, like on the technology basis, but also from the process, business, strategy, and KPIs and goals perspective. And then, figuring out where they have gaps and how we can actually close them through our engagements that we do in our team, so Satya and myself, together with others, or even through other VMware frameworks, support and tools like professional services or, the VMware Cloud Ready framework. And of course, with our partners, how can they help close those gaps? And what we thought was it would be great to have, this groundwork of figuring out where customers are and where they need to go more in an automated and interactive fashion. So actually, Satya and myself started developing this independently from one another. So I sort of had an approach of putting this into an online tool where you can self-assess yourself. And Satya, on the other hand, from the architecture side, with a couple of colleagues, was actually building a more interactive format of that, where we would sit together with customers, multiple stakeholders of them, work on a Mirrorboard where they can, answer question and drag and drop post-its with their answers, and just make it more, interactive, and also give the partners and ourselves a way to understand the customer more holistically. And once we became aware of each other's work, because we are, part of the same organization, we thought it would make a lot of sense to actually federate that, right? So we sat together with the rest of the team and came up with a common set of questions and answers, and then basically put this all into one framework or tool, which is then what we call MCAM, the multi-cloud and app maturity model that we'll show you today.
Okay, so this is kind of almost two versions of the tool, one that you were looking at and one that Satya was looking at. Satya, it sounds like yours was kind of more interactive, something you'd run in a workshop scenario. Would that be right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one I was working was in a Mirrorboard format, more interactive. You can ask multiple open-ended questions, and and then ask, just continue exploring what customers have, right? And then if they have any gaps, and also continually deeper dive into more and more questions, right? So Mirrorboard actually allows that framework to be more open and also make it more interactive. And then customers usually like, the way how we organize this workshop on Mirrorboard. So yeah, again, questions are exactly same on online tool, like what Gerrit was mentioning, and the same question on online, and then the similar same question on Mirrorboard as well.
Okay, so just if I summarize, then this is a kind of a business tool, really, to look at the partner or customer and their business posture in terms of their readiness for multi-cloud and how their business needs to be strong in some areas and identify potential weaknesses. Would that be correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's mainly assessment and gap analysis tool, which can actually spit out some recommendations, which I think Gary's gonna talk about in a bit.
Yeah.
But yes, what you're saying is correct.
Okay, so Garrett, well, let's do you want to show us the tool, or do you want to talk some more about the capabilities of it?
Yeah, I'll show the tool in a second. So just one more thing to add. So the idea is really that the account teams in our partner organizations, or even our own account teams, those are the ones that actually understand like how much effort do we need to spend on a customer, and what's the best way to address that customer, right? Is it something that we believe the customer can do by themselves, or wants to do by themselves, or is it in a situation where we want to invest more resources and make this more interactive, right? So for our partner account teams, it's the full flexibility. Do we want to use this as a self-service, or do we want to turn this into an engagement where actually people are supporting and giving advice, right? And both is possible. We can auto-generate recommendations, or we can make this an interactive workshop depending on how much time and effort we spend on the customer.
And this access to this tool is free. There's no gating behind or anything like that. So this is a really great tool for a partner to sit down with a customer and have an in-depth conversation with them about where they are on their cloud journey, where they're going, and identify potential weaknesses where the partner could help them, or they could improve their own organization.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And also like we looked at a lot of other maturity models or assessment that are out, and there's not a shortage of cloud assessments out on the internet, right? But where we found that they all fall short is they only analyze where you are today. And then they tell you, hey, reach out to us and we'll sell you something, right? So it didn't really go into, hey, where do you want to go and how do you actually get there, right? This was really just teasering that we found on the internet. And we thought, let's build something that actually provides meaningful value to our customers or to our partners if they use this themselves. And this is sort of, what this tool is all about.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So, one thing I just want to add there is this tool also is great. If customer wants to see how mature they are getting in their journey, right? Let's say at point one, they ran this tool, they understood their gap. And then let's say 6 months later, they have matured or they have done something different, and then where they are now today, right? So they can analyze that gap in a continuous way and see the improvement as well. So I like that aspect of this tool as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, customers are definitely, a lot of customers are struggling with resourcing and skills to adapt to multi-cloud scenarios. And I guess this will help them identify where those gaps are. And then hopefully put a plan in place to improve them. Or, like I said, working with a managed service provider, where a managed service provider can step in and provide those skills and resources for them. It's a great opportunity for a partner to get closer to a customer and understand more about the customer's business before they start a engagement with them. Absolutely. All right, Garrett, let's have a look at it then.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to share the URL in the show notes, right? So this is what the tool looks like once you enter it. In the top bottom bar here, we can do two things. One is import and export. So the idea is, if we already filled out this assessment, or we partially filled it out, we can export what we have inserted, and we can import it again to do updates later on, or continue at a later point in time, right? So we don't lose any changes that we have made in the past. And then once we have filled out all the questions, we can download the actual reports, which I can show you afterwards. So the structure of AmCam is we have 6 different areas of questions that we like the customer or the partner together with the customer to fill out, starting from cloud vision and strategy, so very high level and strategic. Where do you want to be? What's your level of support? Through then operationalizing that strategy through business outcomes and goals, leadership, processes, governance, people, tools, enablement, so skilling up my staff. And then finally, the more technical areas around application and development, and infrastructure and data. So within any of these areas, when we click on the pencil here, we get presented with 5 different questions, and they all start with, please describe your current and desired level of this and that. So we want to understand where the customer is today and where they aspire to be on a scale from 1 to 5, and we provide example answers of what these maturity levels mean. Now, what must be understood is that, these answers will not always match 100%, right? So the idea is you select what is closest to your situation or what you feel makes most sense, both for your current state, right? So where are you today? And where do you want to be, in your planning timeline, like 12, 18, or maybe even 24, 36 months. And, we start with very high-level questions, very strategic, like describe your current and desired level of executive sponsorship, commitment, organizational alignment, and strategy for cloud. So very strategic. Do we have commitment? Do we have sponsorship? Starting from, there is no sponsorship, alignment, or strategy for cloud at all. So that would be maturity level 1 in this case. All the way to, we have comprehensive C-level sponsorship spanning a cloud-first culture across the entire organization, and encouraging innovation and experimentation and full alignment in the org. So that would be like maturity level 5 if we want to get there at some point. Mm-hmm. And another important aspect is that, not all organizations should aspire to be a 5 everywhere, right? This needs to be put in context of the organization, of their goals, and what is, most feasible and makes most sense. So here we have the more strategic questions. And then, for example, when we go down to application and development, we have more, technologically focused or tool focused questions. For example, describe your current and desired deployment practice, degree, and tool set of continuous integration and continuous deployment. So we don't have CI/CD at all, or we have standardized CI/CD pipelines consistently used by our project teams. And the same, of course, for the infrastructure and platform kind of areas, where we ask about technologies that are being used in the multi-cloud environment of the customer. So the idea is the customer, with our partner support, fill out all these questions, which should not take longer than, 30 minutes probably. And then
Sorry. Just to go back to, just one of those, I just saw there is a target audience for each one. That, I guess, is addressing the technology area or the subset of the business that could provide input to that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an important point. So this is really about, where do you get those informations from, right? So the app and infrastructure parts is more on the operations side, probably. And for those, for example, we have, senior management who will probably be the ones to answer those questions, right? Or at least the ones to address, to get the answer and put it in here.
Yeah.
All right. So once this is all filled out, we get presented with, where are we today? So the current score, what's our goal? And then, the gap between those two. And this is the first indication of where to act, right? So if we have a high gap, that tells us this is the area where we need to invest a lot of work and a lot of time. If we don't have a very high gap, this tells us, okay, we're pretty good where we are. This does not need too much attention, right? And then down here, we can actually break this down into more detail. So first of all, we have this spider diagram sort of visualizing the gap and also the current maturity, right? And this can tell us, different things about a customer's organization. So here, for example, we see the customer is doing quite well on their strategy definition and their vision, and the gap is not very high. So this makes sense. But apparently they have issues with, translating that strategy into business outcomes and goals. So they're not very mature here, but they understand that they need to be better in defining goals and executing on them. And for example, here we see that, there is not a large gap and the overall target maturity is not very high as well. So this is leadership, governance, processes. So this might tell us that the customer is not very hierarchically organized. They don't put too much effort into governance and processes and have more of an open culture and approach to executing on strategy, right?
Yeah.
And same here. So on the technology side, with the infrastructure is doing good, not too much of a gap. Application and development in this example is, a large gap. This needs a lot of attention and investment from the partner to support the customer or from the customer itself. And then the last part is the heat map, right? So we understand that, there is a large gap in app and development. So we can, see where exactly that is. Is that because, all of these areas within application and development have a large gap, like in this case? Or is it really that, we only have one kind of aspect that has a gap? So for cloud vision and strategy, most of them are okay. It's only one or two aspects that actually have a gap. And then we can see, okay, this is about cloud adoption in regards to locations, platforms, degree of adoption. So this is the specific aspect we need to focus on in that area. So this is, what the online tool looks like. And then once this is concluded, we will actually, export the or download the report, right? So when the customer clicks here, they supply an email address, they get a verification code and can download the report, which looks like this. So it's a PDF document, auto-generated. And first of all, we have a summary of everything we've seen online, like the gap analysis, spider diagram, and the heat map. But the most important part is really that we also have recommendations about how to close this gap or how to close these gaps, right? So when we look at application and development, for example, which has the largest gap, we can see that, there's a lot of text here because the large gap requires a lot of measures to be closed, right? So what we're proposing here is, the customer can engage with our team on defining their application strategy and their modernization strategy. We give them ideas about how to train and skill their people. So in this example, using Cube Academy as a free tool, or, engaging with our professional services team in a rapid portfolio explorer exercise, or even in a paid engagement through App Navigator. So these recommendations change based on the gap and on the area, obviously. And from there, our customers and partners have a pretty clear understanding of how to move forward, how to progress and close those gaps.
Yeah, that's really great. So you can use this as a kind of a point in time snapshot, like you said, export results, come back 6 months later, and re-import the old results, and then go through and see if there's any that have changed. And hopefully these recommendations will, then align with actually visualizing that change in the next kind of checkpoint that you run. So these recommendations, they're all kind of VMware orientated, or are they other? There are other sorts of recommendations in here, Garrett?
Yeah, good question, guys. So, first of all, this is meant to give guidance to the customer and the partners. So how can, partners leverage VMware resources to support these customers? But of course, the idea is also that partners take this report and, augment it with their own services, provide their own recommendations or, ideas on how to close the gaps, right? So what I prepared here is, just an example where a partner could just download the report that we auto-generate. This is a PDF document, but it can be edited in Word, really, right? So you can add your own logo. You can, give this a different name, and then, use whatever is in here or change it, and especially add your own recommendations, right? So in this case, we're saying consult with your account team on the awesome cloud. That's what I call the example partner. Architecture and strategy consulting program. Our team is an advanced cloud pre-sales organization, and so on. So really the idea, take what we give you out of the box and then augment it with your services, your recommendations to make this more, partner-led.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that gives them plenty of opportunity to, I guess, really focus on the whole scope of the customer and, to find more business in the customer ultimately, rather than going in with just, I've got a cloud and how can I help you? It's more about, let me understand your business and how can we help you with that?
Yeah, and the idea is also that, if a partner finds that they have gaps in their own portfolio, they can, use some of our services and just add whatever they have on the truck, right? So we want to give the customer the holistic experience, and whatever the partner has in terms of value add services, because they're very close to customers, they put in here. And if there is a blank spot somewhere, they just use our services, our recommendations and resources that are already in here. So they don't need to figure all this out by themselves. There is a clear guidance on how we can support if the partner does not want to do it themselves or they can't.
Okay. So this is really interesting. I think it's really good that we've started creating material like this. As you said, we'll put the link in the description of the video. So access is free. There's no gating. If you want to download stuff, obviously you have to give us your email just to do that. But then you have the opportunity to turn up at a customer site, maybe sit down with one of their senior management and operations, one person in operations, and go through these different areas, really understand more about what a customer is after in terms of their cloud journey, and then take that back to base, perhaps re-import that file into the tool, then make your own recommendations and bring that back to the customer. I think that's a really, really nice full circle assessment, high level assessment with some proper actionable points and activities afterwards. Thanks for showing us that, Garrett. So Satya, let's have a look at the Mirrorboard then. And for those who don't know, Miro is an application, a SaaS application for really just this type of thing. You can do lots of things with Miro, but we use it. Obviously, we're going to see how you use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, just you want to walk us through the Miro approach you have?
Sure. Awesome. So basically, this is Mirrorboard, right? And like Guy was saying, this is a SaaS service. You just use this app, and yeah, we leverage it for our workshops. So in this board, as you can see, this is the initial, the first screen that we show during the workshop, welcoming people to the workshop, right? And this workshop can get lengthy, actually. Again, depends on how engaged the customer is with partner. It can go anywhere between 2 hours or sometimes even longer, right? Depending on how they are engaged and how interactive they are. So we welcome them here from this initial screen. And then we usually just set up the house rule, bit of introduction, who is who there from partner org and also from the customer. So usually you saw in Gerrit's earlier demonstration that there are personas that we want in the room. So we get the right information from right people, right? So there are things about processes, things about governance, things about people, etc., etc. So we want the right people in the room. So ideally, we would want someone who is in a decision-making, senior management, operations, and apps team, right? So if you have all of these people in the room, the workshop becomes more fruitful, and you get all the information in one go. So here in this example, I'll just put some CTO, CIO, architect, app architect, infrastructure head, or there could be operations team, etc., right? Mm-hmm. So the partner, what they would do is basically introduce the people in the room. If again this Mirrorboard can be run in a collaborative fashion, if everyone wants to get engaged and start using their own sticky and then start writing things on the board, they can do that. Or a partner could take a lead and then take he himself or she himself herself becomes like a note taker, right? Whatever they are saying is just note it down. So they start here, and then if we are going through, okay, everyone's gonna choose a sticky and they're gonna start writing, then we will just give a bit of intro on how to use this sticky. Very easy to use sticky. It's just select the color you want, right? For example, here, let's say CTO wants to start typing in the Mirrorboard himself or herself. The person will choose one color and get that color throughout the workshop. Same thing with the other personas.
Got it.
So once that is done, then we move on to the agenda piece. What we're gonna do in this workshop, what is the outcome that we are achieving, that sort of thing. You saw in Gerrit's demo earlier, all these sections that he was filling in that online tool, right? So this exactly is those 6 sections, each with 5 questions here as well. So we will then describe the customer as a partner. We will tell them, hey, this is the agenda, this is what we're gonna do, and let's run through the workshop. Now, Miro is very easy, actually. So basically, just go there. We have like, let me just zoom out. So there are 6 sections here, all right? Cloud vision and strategy, business outcome and goals, leadership governance and processes, people tool and enablement, application development, and then infrastructure and data platform. So we will be spending a lot of time here discussing about questions and then entering, all the information that we are discussing in the workshop here, right? So if the workshop is run in a collaborative fashion, people will be choosing the sticky, like I said, and then starting to answer them, one by one. Or if someone is leading it and taking the note, then they will read out the question and then just type it, select one of the sticky, and then start typing, responses to these questions.
Okay.
So. Yeah, any questions out here?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking this is and I've seen one in my kind of history working with partners and customers, I've seen this is often very, very interesting because you're going to get a lot of different views from a lot of different areas of the business. And it really does, if you've got everyone there, one person representing each part of the business, this is a huge value to getting, real understanding from, a senior management, not understanding potentially how operations or accounting are working, which, you wouldn't expect them to. this is a real high value for everyone learning the impact of cloud or a particular solution that you're trying to look at, and how it impacts them. How do you keep control, Satya, on something like this? There must be a fair amount of policing the crowd when you're going through this.
Yeah, 100%. That happens a lot, right? And especially when people are vocal and interactive, actually, that makes workshop really interesting. And I actually love that energy when running workshop like that, right? And interesting is when we are running this, sometimes they even don't know, like what this team were doing and then what this team was doing. Now, suddenly all these things are opening up, right? And lots of creativity, lots of new information comes in there. And sometimes the organizations themselves are discovering themselves with this kind of engagement. So it becomes very, very valuable for them.
Yeah, I think that's also the beauty of having the combination of, an easy, low-touch online tool, where you only really have one person that can fill this out, right? It's not really multi-stakeholder capable, right? And then, you could have a pre-assessment with, whatever the lead on that topic is, right? And he or she fills this out. And then if there is, disagreement in the organization, we come back with an interactive workshop, like especially through the Mirrorboard. And then we get everyone to contribute their views and, actually support them in consensus building and coming up with, what it actually is across the organization, where they are and where they aspire to be as a team, right? And then we can update the online tool and just have that report again. So it's really the best of both worlds, depending on, how easy it is for the customer to come to a clear answer.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I think this, so you could use this as a partner with a customer, to then put the end number for that question, what is the current and what is the goal, back in the tool. But now you've got a whole list more recommendations and actions and identify problems in the business and opportunity, which you can really, really then dive into the recommendations.
Yeah. And here exactly. We can capture here we can capture way more detail, right? So in the online tool, we only ask, do you have challenges and roadblocks? Okay, we can't ask which ones they are. And here we'll actually figure out, what kind of issues specifically are they facing in the cloud adoption. And that can, then help partners to very specifically, recommend actions to work around these roadblocks.
Yeah, so the online tool that Gary showed earlier, it really complements it. If a partner could run that before this workshop, that whatever recommendation and whatever input that they have got could be an input for this workshop, right? So they bring in here with their understanding, and then they open up with those like whatever questions that has been answered there, use it there, and then open up discussion. So sometimes it could be also time saving that way, right? We pre-fill all the information from that online tool and then start use that as a starting point for this workshop.
Yeah, I think you could send out the online tool to the different roles beforehand, and it might be really interesting then to see the diverse set of results you're going to get back, and then try and explain those in the workshop. So condensing the kind of the noise to, right, you said it was a 1, but you said it was a 5. Why do you think it's a 1?
Exactly. So it makes it like a really good brainstorming session, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the one big advantage of this one, like Gate was saying earlier, is this is just the subset of questions we start with. But as we explore things, it will open up another question, right? You can ask, like I said, you can have 5 whys or maybe more questions after another. And sometimes even the attendees may be asking questions, and then that can also be feed into here, right? So the content here becomes really rich, and it has a lot of data point.
Okay, and Satya, you've obviously run this, as a part of your team with a number of customers. How would or partners? How would a partner gain access to your team to be able to run one of these?
Yeah, so our VCP partners, they can leverage us through our VCPP SCs. Like Gade was saying, they can, if they want to run this kind of workshop, they can bring us in. This is a free engagement. We'll come there and assist our partners for this kind of workshop. And also, like, this becomes like a synergetic effort between partner and our expertise that we have on this kind of delivering on this kind of workshops, right? Gade, anything to add there?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. So at the moment, this is primarily run by our team through the Accelerated Adoption Program with partners, but we're also in the process of, bringing this to all the field SAs and SEs that we have so that, they can support on a broader scale. And then, enable partners as well, right? So if we have a partner that wants to run this multiple times, we can obviously enable them as well, right? Because all the tools are there, and then they are more or less self-sufficient on executing that.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah, this model is very flexible. Like Gary said earlier in the beginning, that if the partner, they don't want to spend a lot of time, if the customer doesn't want to spend a lot of time, partner can say, okay, can you please fill this online form? That will be like a bare minimum gap analysis, right? And if the customer is really interested and they want to really deep dive into their gaps and understand, what their gaps are and how to fulfill it, then we can run this really involved workshop on Mirrorboard format.
Yeah, I mean, it takes the partner to a different level with the customer. I mean, often assessments are, conducted, well, they're hopefully always conducted, but they're usually conducted with a view of, you want to migrate this estate to cloud, not with a view of, let's look at your business and how your business is actually managing their cloud goals and objectives, which can open up a lot more business to a managed service provider, with especially one with professional services arm as well.
Yes.
And I think that's, we often see from the analysts, right, that managed services is driving richer margins, more opportunities, and this is a great tool to kind of dive into those areas and then prioritize them with the customer on the journey that you take with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once you have that gap identified, use the MSP services that partners have to fulfill those gaps, right? 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're raising a great point there, Guy, that it's really not just about the technology, which is super important, right? But like we and our partners, we can have the best services in the world. If the customer is not ready from a business or strategic or financial perspective, they're not going to execute. They're not going to consume, right? So we want to make sure that we understand not just where the technological gaps are, because we are all pretty great at closing those. We need to understand where the other gaps in the customer's org, help them close that, so that everyone is successful on their cloud journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Satya, is there anything else in this Mirrorboard to highlight?
Yeah, I'll just quickly touch on a few more things here. So I'm just zooming out a lot, right? So this is how the whole Mirrorboard looks. I mean, you can't see anything here, but so Mirrorboard, every section has a parking lot. If there are things that the discussions are, like you said, Guy, getting overheated and going out of the rail, probably park those questions and then say, hey, let's park it here, and then we'll come back to that, right? The partner can run it that way. Or if they really want to deep dive into every aspect of it, they can just continue doing it, and instead of running it as a 2-hour workshop, maybe it could be 2 days workshop, right? If they are going to that detail, that can also be done. So one thing here, as you saw earlier, so the personas that are good for this, that we need for this section, as you saw on Garrett's online tool as well, is so for this section we will need senior management to answer these questions. Same thing with business outcome and goals, the target audience. We need the input from senior management, right? So it is very, very self-explanatory, and the guide it gives is very clear. So the partner needs to know, okay, who should be filling this section, right? So here, a mid-level management, right? For leadership, governance, and process. So this is, like Gary said, it's not just about technology; it's about everything: people, process, technology, governance, right? They have compliance, posture, security, all of that, right? So here again, people, tool, and enable. How are they going to do this when they embark on the cloud journey? What is their gap, and how are they filling that gap? That sort of thing, right? And this one is more about modernizing their application or their current application landscape, app and development. And we conclude the workshop with infrastructure, data, and platform, where we will need operations level people, potentially, VMware admins or infrastructure head, that sort of persona.
So I think one thing that might be quite useful is to provide a little bit of guidance on those target audiences, because I'm just thinking, when you say senior management, right, you could end up with just, I don't know, the CTO, CEO coming into the meeting. I'm senior management, that's my role. But actually what you want is senior management from all of the departments which are going to be involved in this. So it's actually,
correct.
Let's understand how your business operates from a department perspective and how it's broken down. And then you want, the senior management from, I don't know, accounting, the senior management from, integration and I don't know, development, senior management from operations. So you have alignment across that team that the understanding of, in this case, the business goals and objectives is clear, or you can see where the discrepancies are throughout the organization.
Yeah, so the guideline here is to bring as many senior managements as possible, right? Especially who already has knowledge around these topics, and then try to fill in with as much rich data as possible.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Anything else on this, Satya?
Yeah, so one last thing I want to show, similar to the recommendation engine that our online tool has. So here, this is also again guideline, right? So this is again very VMware flavored, but like Gate was saying earlier, partners can fill in with their own services that they think is good for that particular customer, right? So in our case, we are just giving few recommendations. Again, this is just the templates that people can run. If a customer, for example, is embarking on app modernization journey, we have tools like framework like Rapid Portfolio Explorer, or if they want to even go a deeper dive, lengthy workshops and really understand how to refactor, what app to refactor, the 5R, or people say 6R, right? That sort of refactoring, retaining, that sort of thing. Which apps should be gone through, like which apps should be refactored, which apps should be retained, that sort of conversation. App Navigator will help them to understand which apps should be, should go to refactor or rehost or retain or retire bucket. So this kind of workshops are there from VMware. But again, our partners may have similar services. They can also, leverage those as a recommendation. We also have, services, free services from our team, which is multi-cloud deep dive strategy engagement, which is Gary's team, and then multi-cloud deep dive architects and design engagement, which is our team, right? And if the customer, they want to start doing piloting or POCs, that could be another recommendation. So all of these recommendations, we actually come to this once we analyze all the data that is collected in the workshop, and then we then recommend what would be the next step for the customer. That's how it works.
Okay, that's cool. So that could be very tuned to how the service provider wants to engage, or we can leave it as the VMware helper that's available for a partner.
Exactly. So at the end of the workshop, the next step is just to wrap up and then gather anything that we may have missed, and then the next step would be to maybe around 2-3 weeks later, after crunching all the data, analyzing data that has been collected, come up with executive summary, and then say, hey, these are the steps we think is appropriate for a company, right? So partners can then produce the readout and then present it to the customer.
And it's all about working with the customer to prioritize what fits when and how. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. This is really nice stuff, and it's great to see the Mirrorboard kind of backing and taking a deep dive into the HTML assessment model. Garrett, is there any plans around the kind of next phases for the assessment model in terms of the HTML interface?
Yeah, so two things we're currently working on. One is, scaling out the enablement content, right? Like, so this podcast is obviously part of it, but, having more documentation, maybe putting this even into Partner Connect for partners to consume, and, also upskilling more of our field colleagues so that they can support partners and customers directly. Mm-hmm. And then the other important feature that there was a feedback from the first engagement with partners in the Asian Pacific area was that we should probably have this localized to different languages. So in the near future, we should have this available in Chinese and Japanese language, at least the online tool, right? Just to deal with any potential language barrier and make this just easier and more straightforward to use for all audiences.
Great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think there'll probably be more demand from our other partners in different geographies for more languages, which will be nice to see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'll put the link in the video. For those watching the video, please go to the link, have a play with the model, get to know it, understand it, and reach out to us. There'll be an address in the video brief as well for more information or more assistance. Garrett, Satya, thank you very much today for showing us around these tools, and I think it's brilliant that you guys have created these methodologies and really trying to help our partners and help our customers realize their cloud goals and their cloud objectives. So Thank you so much for all the effort put in, and thank you for coming on today and sharing it with us.
Thanks for having us, Guy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers.